What's going on, everybody? My name is C4. Welcome back to the channel. Happy Victory Monday, fellow Eagles fans and all 30 other teams that even if you hate Philly, you can put that aside to appreciate the fact that at least for 1 year, the Kansas City Chiefs' dominance is over. And not only is it over, they got absolutely embarrassed on national television in front of the world. One of the most one-sided, butt-kicking Super Bowls of all time. You're welcome. But today is a perfect day to do a post-Super Bowl mock draft. Honestly, not to sell my future video, but I am and was planning on recording and dropping a Miami Dolphins realistic rebuild. That is taking longer than expected. No chance I was going to get that finished today. Ideally out for tomorrow. So, hey, screw it. Change of plans. Let's do a mock draft. But to make it a little more spicier, a little more fun, we're going to go less from how I think it's going to happen from pick 1 all the way to 32. We're going to do trades. First time I've done trades. And I think I'm going to lose some of you, and I'm going to pique interest on a lot of you, I think, with how this video is going to start. But why not, man? Have some fun with the trade. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trades, which I think is, roughly around average on any given year for a first round. And without further ado, the Tennessee Titans on the clock at 1-1. My vibes that I get from the Titans is like, in a dream world, they can find a trade partner. They don't want a quarterback here. Quarterback is always the position that, teams are going to be aggressive in trading up for. What team is going to want to trade for the first overall pick? And I thought long and hard about this. What team, one, you could make the argument is like, if they hit on this quarterback, who knows how far they could go? It's like, that's a discussion, right? 2, what, with a not particularly elite S-tier quarterback class, what team could fall in love with a quarterback that is also desperate enough that, like, if they don't find a quarterback, they could be out of a job? And a team that has shown that they're willing to trade up, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers trading up. Now, what I have for value, I went through a trade calculator to get this to go through. I have the Pittsburgh Steelers trading pick 20. I have them trading their second round pick 52. I have them trading their first round pick in 2026 and their second round pick in 2026. So essentially trading the next 2 drafts in a way. I don't think it'd take 3 first rounders, but I think Mike Tomlin, it's enough time in purgatory. I had a buddy that was a Steelers fan over the Super Bowl. I was like, oh, I don't really know. Maybe we run it back with Justin Fields. I hear Aaron Rodgers. Like, you are in absolute quarterback purgatory if Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, Aaron Rodgers is what you're doing. And if you're a great head coach in Mike Tomlin, you just got to accept the fact that based off of your own selection, you're never going to be bad enough to get that true Big Ben Roethlisberger successor, right? And the Steelers have been aggressive with their first-round picks. They've traded ones away for Minkah Fitzpatrick. They moved up 10 spots to pick 10 to draft the freaking linebacker in Devin Bush. So in this scenario, Mike Tomlin, the same way he fell in love with Jalen Hurts, which I think if the Steelers go back in hindsight, I mean, all Jalen Hurts does is have S-tier Super Bowl performances. I have the Pittsburgh Steelers trading up, mortgaging the future, fighting for his career as the head coach of the Steelers, getting finally a quarterback. The Pittsburgh Steelers trade all the way up to number 1 to select Cam Ward, quarterback out of Miami. Cam Ward, 6'2", 225, 4,300 yards, almost 40 touchdowns last year. It's one of those weird years where it's like, if you're a Steelers fan, you're like, yeah, okay, you know what? End of the day, if he's our franchise quarterback, having a franchise quarterback, finally, a Big Ben successor. If you can get that feeling, I don't think you care what it costs you, right? And if you're the Titans, you are beginning a rebuild. You are more than the number 1 pick away. The fact that you now have 2 first-round picks this year, 2 second-round picks this year, 2 first-round picks next year, 2 second-round picks next year. Now the Steelers, you're not probably anticipating that being like, these first-round picks being in the top 10, but that is a lot of draft capital for them to go on and kind of complete the rebuild, which is exactly what the Titans need. Not one player is going to fix that shit show. That is the Titans roster. So that is how we're starting. Hopefully you're still with me. We're going to have fun, the rest. But that was a big one because I think the vibe amongst most Titan fans is, can we trade him? Pick number 2, we have the Cleveland Browns. They're going to select Abdul Carter with the news that Myles Garrett's handed in his trade sheet. That is as good of a role as you possibly could have if you have to go out and try to replace Myles Garrett. Abdul Carter, obviously an S-tier type talent, freak of nature athlete, 6'3", 250, 24 TFLs, 12 sacks, 43 hurries. He's going to be a day one impact starter for that Cleveland Browns defense. We're going to have another trade. The New York Giants are on the clock. Giants are in a weird spot, man. Are they going to go quarterback? Are they not going to go quarterback? I had a lot of people say that this is a spot where, like, man, they're going to go Shador. Are they going to go Shador? I actually have them trading out. I have the Las Vegas Raiders jumping up 3 spots. It's going to cost them the 6th pick this year and a 2nd round pick next year to move up to secure the services of Shador Sanders. Tom Brady gets his guy. The Giants avoid and wash their hands clean of a who knows how the hell this quarterback class is going to drop. And we will eventually have the Giants get the guy I think they would have drafted anyways at this spot. But the Vegas Raiders are aggressive in ensuring the fact that they are going to get, hopefully, their new franchise quarterback. And I would be absolutely shocked if Shador Sanders isn't quarterback number 1 on Tom Brady's board. And let's be honest, hopefully, if you're a Raiders fan, Tom Brady is now kind of running that team for you guys. Number 4, we have the New England Patriots, and I'm going to have them select Will Campbell, the offensive tackle from LSU. Patriots are very much in a situation of the Bengals a couple years ago. Do you go Jamar Chase? Do you go Sewell? Both options would have been great in hindsight. I think the Patriots are here. Do you go Campbell? Do you go McMillan? Last mock draft, I went McMillan. I think now you can make the argument that the Patriot way, they're trying to get back Mike Vrabel. Feel like Vrabel might want to build the trenches a little bit more than grabbing a playmaker there. I think protecting Drake May might be more valuable, and you're going to gamble with someone like Drake May. You still, if you're the Patriots, probably want to spend money at wide receiver in free agency or your 2nd round pick. You want to prioritize your next couple big draft capital picks to be playmakers. But I think if you're optimistic of Drake May being that guy, being that franchise quarterback, you always want to gamble on that franchise quarterback being able to elevate other wide receivers. And it's much more likely that a quarterback can elevate a 2nd round pick at wide receiver, say if, like, you know, Matthew Golden, Trey Harris, Ayo Manor, Jaden Royals, Jack Betch. If one of those guys are available, you want to gamble that Drake May can elevate those guys more than you can have a quarterback elevate a tackle. It's just way more likely the wide receiver route. So let's go with the premier pick here, top 5 selection for Will Campbell. The Jacksonville Jaguars are pick number 5. Here's a hot pick. I think the Jags need corner. That's their top need. And they're actually going to go with the best pure corner in the draft, the safer selection, arguably, in Will Johnson, the corner out of Michigan. I think if you are the Jags and you clearly just, I need a corner. I need a lockdown, put me on an island corner. You look at Will Johnson, 6'2", 200 pounds, pick 6, ball hawk production. He just ticks all the boxes of, like, you don't have to worry about it. Because you look at Shador, you look at Travis Hunter, you like, what's he going to be? There's still a little bit of mystery. Generational athlete. I personally, if I was picking and I was the Jags, I think I would still go Travis Hunter. You know, they're ran by a friggin' wrestling mogul and Tony Khan. Maybe he goes for the marketability of Travis Hunter. And I've done mock drafts where the Jags go Travis Hunter. But I think for a team like Jacksonville, it just needs stability. I think safe pick over high risk pick. And I think that is kind of the difference between Johnson and Travis Hunter. I think you have a better chance of, if higher floor is Will Johnson in this situation. I guess that's the easiest way to move on. Higher floor is Will Johnson. However, the much higher ceiling is Travis Hunter. And that is where I have the New York Giants going here at pick number 6. Trading back, still getting Travis Hunter, who will be a corner, I think, first. And then you're going to be able to sprinkle him in at wide receiver. I think I did a great job defending this pick last time. Last mock draft, I had the Giants going Travis Hunter. I think the reality is, Travis Hunter, I think, could be a corner 1 and then like a wide receiver 2. And I think when you're the Giants and you have Malik Nabers as your wide receiver 1, being able to sprinkle in Travis Hunter, he doesn't have to be the guy. You know, you have Travis Hunter go to the Jags, for an example. He's going to need to be, you know, a different style because you have Brian Thomas, deep threat, burner, awesome player, arguably the biggest surprise of the first round last year out of those wide receivers because you can make the argument that he was the best. But I feel like with Malik Nabers, I think Malik Nabers is a little bit more versatile than what you get in Brian Thomas. So that versatility allows him to kind of bear all the weight of the wide receiver room. And then you can have Travis Hunter get sprinkled in a little bit. And you don't have to worry about it because Malik Nabers, if you need a game plan where he moves in the slot, he can do it. You need a game plan where he moves on the outside, he can do it. That versatility, I think, gives a little more luxury to the Giants utilizing Travis Hunter on offense than the Jags utilizing Travis Hunter on offense. But, I mean, for both these teams, Brian Thomas, excellent. Malik Neighbors, excellent. I think another element to this is just the stability. You know, you get a little bit higher floor, a little bit safer pick for Jacksonville, going Will Johnson, and then you get the Giants, who need slam dunks. You need slam dunks here. You have Brian Daboll, who's getting near the end of that leash. You figure, like, when are you going to do it? And I feel like if you are the Giants, you go veteran quarterback somewhere. Aaron Rodgers, just 1 year Band-Aid, kick that can down the road, look at the quarterbacks next year. This year, you go and swing for the fences on a big, exciting name. Somebody that can get the fans excited after the whole Saquon Barkley debacle in Travis Hunter. Pick 7, we have the Jets on the clock. And for this selection, we have another trade. We're going to have the New York Jets, who are picking at, let's get them here on the board, at pick 7. I'm going to have the Dallas Cowboys trade up from pick 12. I have the Cowboys sending their third-round pick this year and their third-round pick next year to make this selection. The value evens out, and here's why. I think Jerry Jones is desperate. Jerry Jones has an ego. Jerry Jones was embarrassed by the performance this year. Jerry Jones is embarrassed by the fact that Philadelphia won a Super Bowl. He's embarrassed by the fact that it was the Eagles and Commanders in the championship game. He needs to make his splash. He's sick and tired of seeing all the mock drafts have him get Ashton Genty. I have the Dallas Cowboys trading up for Ted McMillan, wide receiver from Arizona. I think it's time for them just sell out. He's going to be like, all right, Philadelphia has A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, 2 wide receiver ones. I need 2 wide receiver ones. You have CeeDee Lamb, whose best spot is in the slot. You need someone then that could be the game changer on the outside to justify the Dak Prescott contract, and that is exactly what you get in McMillan. 6'5", 210 pounds, height, weight, speed, yards after catch, jump ball ability, very, very good wide receiver. He had 1,300 yards, 8 touchdowns last year, and I think this is just the big splash move. Jerry Jones almost feeling desperate to make the biggest move possible that he could make. And I feel like at this point, sitting there waiting, I would imagine Dallas might have McMillan as a blue chip player. I think a lot of teams are going to have him a blue chip player for this year's class and be like, you know what, if we had to compete with the Eagles offense and the Eagles defense and the Commanders offense, I think the best chance for them to make a splash move would be to go out and get another wide receiver that could potentially unlock that offense and get Dak Prescott back to that level where he was throwing for over 5,000 yards a season. So we have Dallas being very aggressive there, jumping up and leapfrogging some other teams that are probably hoping McMillan would have been on the board. We have Carolina up at pick number 8. This is a dream pick, I think, for them, selecting Mason Graham, an absolute blue-chip defensive lineman out of the University of Michigan. Panthers need D-lineman help, and you are running that one up to the podium as Graham is as blue-chip as it gets. We have the New Orleans Saints at pick number 9. Kellen Moore. If Kellen Moore truly is going there, I think looking at this board, I think they need the best who's the number 1 player here that can salvage that offense a little bit? Who is the number 1 pass catcher on the board that can salvage this offense? And for me, I have it being Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State. I think the success, Brock Bowers, now I don't think Tyler Warren's a better prospect than Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers went, 12 to the Raiders last year? But I think teams around the league are going to see how Brock Bowers was still the entire passing offense of the Raiders went through him. So now there's going to be this acceptance of, I think, the rejuvenation of running backs. I think running backs are going to go in the first round, where before it was like you had to be a Saquon Barkley go in the first round. I think tight ends are also going to get pushed up a little bit more after seeing the success that Brock Bowers had with the Raiders. And I think if you're the Saints, just because you need a wide receiver, you also need a tight end. You don't have to just reach for a wide receiver because you need a pass catcher. I think now with the success of Brock Bowers and you have Kellen Moore, who knows how to utilize a tight end from his time in Dallas, knows how to utilize his tight end this year with Dallas Goedert, I think that Tyler Warren is the best single pick to improve that Saints offense at pick 9 right now. I think that'd be a hell of a selection. What a utility piece for Kellen Moore in his first year as a Saints head coach. And it's a great safety net for whenever it is time that the Saints can go out and grab a quarterback. You're going to be very happy that you have Tyler Warren and Chris Olave on the roster. We have the Chicago Bears at pick number 10, and we're going to have them select Tyler Booker, the guard from Alabama. I think you watched the Chicago Bears last year. Nothing, no other move you could make could improve this roster more so than being able to keep A, Caleb Williams upright, and B, helping establish a run game. We have Tyler Booker, who's like almost a top 10 pick on Daniel Jeremiah's big board. Maybe a little rich for a guy to go top 10. Maybe you could look at someone like Kelvin Banks, who gives you guard tackle versatility. Maybe you can, that might be a little bit additional value. But I think it's going to be an absolute lock that Tyler Booker will be a day one starter as a rookie at guard, which there's a lot of desperate teams for guard this year. And the Chicago Bears go do Caleb Williams the biggest favor they possibly could and get him some protection. Pick 11, we have the 49ers, and they're loving this. They get Kelvin Banks at tackle from Texas. You need a successor for Trent Williams. Is he going to retire? Is he not? Even if he doesn't, you have Banks, put him at right tackle. Banks has short. He's a little bit smaller, so maybe you can get him out of guard if you want him to eventually be Trent Williams' successor, and Trent does return next season. But I think ultimately for the 49ers, going offensive line in this first round, you can't go wrong with that selection. We have the New York Jets now on the clock. This was probably, honestly, the one pick of this entire mock draft. I was like, man, that's a little rich. But I have them selecting Malachi Starks, the safety from Georgia. Now, he's not coming off the best year, but I still think from a pure talent standpoint, you are very much flirting with Malachi Starks getting that blue chip. I think safety is a huge need for the New York Jets. They go out again and get a defensive head coach, which, sure. I mean, I don't know. Personally, I might have went offensive just because it didn't work with Robert Saleh, who was a great defensive coach anyways. But, hey, you go Glenn. You know Glenn can perform with safeties. We saw what he did with Kirby Joseph, get a bunch of picks. I think he'd be salivating the fact of getting another blue-chip type safety in Malachi Starks, even though that, pick 12 might be a little rich, especially with the year Starks coming off of. I think he should test pretty well and make this selection not that much of a reach. We have the Miami Dolphins up at pick 13, and I'm going to have them select former 5-star recruit Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss. I am doing a rebuild for the Dolphins right now. I think trenches is where they have to go. They have to get tougher. And I think with that front, Walter Nolan, I think he's going to test very, very well. I think, if you're looking at just positional rankings, player ranks, right, maybe a little bit of a reach. I think once all the testing is said and done, everyone's going to go, oh, yeah, that's the reason why Walter Nolan was like the number one high school recruit and a 5-star, consensus 5-star across the board. I think for the Dolphins, you get Nolan for a pass rush. Hopefully you get Jalen Phillips can stay healthy. Bradley Chubb can stay healthy. You got Chop Robinson, who looks like he could be absolutely an ascending pass rusher. I think for Miami at pick 13, getting big-time help on the defensive line is an absolute slam dunk of a pick. We have the Colts at pick 14. I'm going to have them select Colson Loveland. It's kind of a generic pick at this point, having the Colts get a tight end, but I think getting a safety net on that receiving core for Anthony Richardson, or whoever the hell ends up being the quarterback, is a top priority, and Loveland is a very smooth route runner. It reminds me a lot of Dallas, of Zach Ertz, when, just chain mover, elite route running. I mean, there's some people that think Loveland could even play a little bit of slot wide receiver. I think that would be, not necessarily a role for the Colts. You don't need a slot, but I think at tight end, Loveland just unlocks another element to that offense that they just haven't had, and maybe, just maybe, having a reliable safety net could unlock another level of Anthony Richardson's development. We have the Atlanta Falcons up next at pick 15. This was a pick that I made a couple mock drafts ago, and people roasted me a little bit. I think it makes a whole lot of sense. I had them going Jalen Walker, edge rusher from Georgia. Now, he's kind of a hybrid. He's a tweener. You're kind of gambling that he'll be able to fully make that transition to pass rush. But I think for the Atlanta Falcons, bottom dollar, you need to get after the quarterback more consistently. Felt like a little bit later on in the season last year, they were starting to get after the quarterback a decent amount. But I think with Jalen Walker, 6'2", 245, 6.5 sacks, 11 TFLs, an ascending pass rusher would be exactly what the doctor ordered for the Atlanta Falcons. Arizona at pick 16. This is where actually I had them going in my last mock draft. I think it makes a lot of sense. We're going to go Kenneth Grant, the nose tackle out of Michigan. Big-time athletic profile. A lot of people for 340 pounds think he's going to be kind of one of those, like, holy shit type performers at the combine. I believe he's on Bruce Feldman's freak list. I mean, that's just kind of like, a staple. Michigan. If you're like a D lineman, highly regarded D lineman or skill position player for Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State, you're usually a freak of nature athlete. I think for the Cardinals, that's a big get for that defensive front, and get Jonathan Gannon, a defensive head coach, another toy to play with. We have the Cincinnati Bengals up next at pick 17, and I'm having them get James Pierce Jr., the edge rusher from Tennessee. The Bengals, you could always plug and play O-line, but I think the value here would be at edge rusher. James Pierce, another guy, 6'5", 245 pounds, maybe a little one-dimensional right now in his game as a pure pass rusher. You got to have to develop him a little bit as a run stopper, but 13 TFLs, 7.5 sacks, 43 hurries last year. He's been, over the last 2 years, like one of the most consistent edge rushers in the SEC. And I think for the Bengals, you got to get someone not named Trey Hendrickson that can get out and get after the quarterback. Their defense was an absolute liability. Felt like every game for the Bengals this year, it was like our offense has to outscore them because our defense can't get stops. I think James Pierce adding to that pass rush would be a huge get. Seattle, O-line is the big need, and we're going to have them get our man Membu, lineman from Mizzou, another player that's just a draft riser. Pretty much anyone that's worth their weight in draft analysis has him now rising up to a first round. We knew kind of from the outside looking in, that's like, all right, had reliable SEC blocker. I believe he was also mentioned on Bruce Feldman's freak list, so he should test pretty well, all things considered. But I think for Seattle, going on the interior of the offensive line, it's not a sexy pick, but it's a pick that a player that will be able to start and contribute right away. And if you're kind of locked into Geno Smith like you are, it's never too late to get a successor. Maybe they go quarterback in the second round, but I think protecting and continuing to address and build the trenches is a safe pick for the Seattle Seahawks at 18. Pick 19, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I'm going to have them select Mike Green, edge rusher from Marshall. Talked about it before. I believe there may be a red flag or two what caused him to leave Virginia Tech. If that comes to light, maybe that could affect him a little bit. But he absolutely crushed it at the Senior Bowl. His production, he's the most productive edge rusher in this year's draft. 6'4", 250, 23 TFLs, 17 sacks, 32 hurries a year ago. If everything checks out, which it could, I have no inclination. It's not really making a lot of waves right now. This is just Reddit draft, Reddit chatter around Mike Green. Everything checks out now for him to be established as a first rounder. And again, with the success of, you see even last year, of Quinyon Mitchell, smaller school player, but big time production. If you can play, you can play. And I feel like that's going to be kind of the bubble and scope that Mike Green gets viewed this year. Pick number 20. We have the Denver Broncos, and I'm selecting Ashton Jeanty, running back from Boise State. He gets, Sean Payton gets his Camara. You get your Camara. Jeanty, for as much as we all know everything, the numbers, the Heisman, should he have won the Heisman, should he not won the Heisman, like 3,000 freaking yards chasing Barry Sanders' record. Like a year ago, like Ashton Jeanty's a guy that can catch 70, 80 balls. Like he absolutely can unlock that offense for the Denver Broncos, be a focal point of that offense, to pair that with a very high level of optimism, I think, amongst Bronco fans for year 2 of Bo Nix. I think that's an absolute slam dunk and a perfect fit for a Sean Payton offense. I'm telling you right now, Jeanty would absolutely be in the bubble for like a first-round fantasy football draft pick. Landing in Denver, they will utilize him. He will get the football early and often. Now we have Tennessee up on the clock at pick 21. After trading back from the first overall selection with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think this is a very good pick. Edge rusher is a need, and you're going to get a guy in Mykel Williams, who I think could go top 10, but if he goes top 10, it's a little rich because it's kind of similar to like Travon Walker, who went first overall to the Jags, where you're just gambling on traits. And I don't necessarily know if Mykel Williams has the exact same traits as Travon Walker, but Mykel Williams is absolutely in the discussion at 6'5", 265, elite length of like he has all the traits. All he needs is a little bit of refinement, and it could be sky's the limit. So you're getting a guy who arguably, in this year's class, probably outside of Abdul Carter, could be in discussion for, like, he could have the highest ceiling of a pass rush. Those usually go a lot higher than pick 21. So for the Titans trading back and getting a guy with an incredibly high ceiling at a premium position, I think you absolutely can sleep at night, as well knowing the haul that you got from the Steelers in future draft. You're going to have 2 second-round picks now. You're going to have 2 first-round picks next year to really hone in and properly rebuild that program. We have the Chargers at pick 22 up next, and I'm going to have them select a Marion Hampton, running back from North Carolina. I think the revival of the running backs, we're going to see the true S-tier RB prospects get valued this year, and I have Hampton right behind Ashton Jeanty for the top running backs in this year's class. I think if you're Harbaugh, it's old school, he's traditional. The fact that this old school football is kind of making a shift back, I think you look at the kind of the teams that aren't quite there, but absolutely could shape their team the same way the Eagles have got and won the Super Bowl. I think the Chargers are going to be like, we need we can get a blue chip running back. Guy's going to get 1,500 yards, double-digit touchdowns, can pass pro, can catch the football in the backfield. That is exactly what a Marion Hampton can bring to that offense, which let's be honest, that offense made J.K. Dobbins look good. Now he's not a slouch. J.K. Dobbins is very valid to even be in that comeback player of the year discussion, absolutely. But J.K. Dobbins and Marion Hampton are 2 different types of species at running back. So if you can make J.K. Dobbins look pretty goddamn serviceable, imagine what you do with a legitimate baller, proven baller with no injury history in a Marion Hampton who was dominating on a terrible North Carolina team last year. Up next, we got Green Bay. This is at pick 23. I'm going to have the Green Bay Packers select Jahdae Barrett, the corner out of Texas. I believe he's the number 9 player on Daniel Jeremiah's board. I mean, Barrett was just, every time I watched Texas play, Barrett and Makuba, the safety, he was a transfer from Clemson. Those are just 2 players that constantly just stood out. I was like, that guy is an absolute dog. I had the Packers going with him in my last mock draft. He's 5'11", 200 pounds, so maybe not the perfect outside prototypical size, but you're getting a guy with 11 PBUs, 5 interceptions, had a 90 PFF grade. We don't know for the Green Bay Packers what the future is in store for Jair Alexander. So I think corner is a big-time priority here, and Barrett at 23 is outstanding value. Minnesota at 24. This is probably like the one where it's like I didn't love any of the options that were available, and I'm almost taking feedback from the comments. Tyleik Williams, defensive tackle from Ohio State. I think with last mock draft, I had the Vikings going Hampton, and people were like, oh my God, with D tackles on the board, Williams is like the most common name. I was like, you know what, that actually kind of, checks out in a way. Like, D tackle's a need. Williams is 330, but he can probably play a couple different positions on that defensive front there for Brian Flores. Ohio State producer, better football ahead of him. It does tick a lot of boxes for Vikings, but I'd love to hear the feedback because this was probably the one pick, honestly. The Jets pick at 12, getting Starks, and the Vikings getting Williams here at 24. Those are probably the 2 overall this mock draft. I was like, I don't know, maybe get a little feedback on those ones. Next, we have the Houston Texans at pick 25, and I'm going to have them select Donovan Jackson, lineman from Ohio State. You cannot watch the Houston Texans play and not admit offensive line is without a shadow of a doubt the biggest area of weakness. You have Donovan Jackson, who played guard, then he was like thrown in to play tackle, played both at a very high level for Ohio State. That versatility is elite. He's the most versatile lineman in this year's class, and I think protecting C.J. Stroud is absolute priority number 1. You could go defense. You could grab a wide receiver here. I think you go with a guy that can play guard and or tackle. You get multiple positions for him to eventually be a starter for you on that offensive line. Don't be dumb. Protect C.J. Stroud. We have the Rams up next at pick 26, and with the news that Cooper Kupp is on the trade block, perfect spot for them to slide in and get Luther Burden, wide receiver from Mizzou, who a year ago would have been a top 10 pick. Everything about Mizzou was kind of just regressed last year, but Luther Burden is an incredibly versatile wide receiver who Sean McVay will have an absolute... He'd faint. He'd be smiling. They run that one up. I think for what McVay would be able to scheme up for Luther Burden, who is, if you're trying to comp like prime, remember when Debo was unbelievable? Remember when Debo was like everyone wanted a Debo Samuel? That is what Luther Burden is, and that's what he'd be able to bring to an offense. Obviously, production, not great. 5'11", 210, had about 700 yards and 6 touchdowns last year. I don't think that's going to hurt whatsoever. I think a Luther Burden, Puka Nacua wide receiver core is not going to be fun for any defense trying to stop them next year. Pick 27, we have the Baltimore Ravens, and I'm going to have them select Shamar Stewart, the edge rusher from A&M, who absolutely crushed the Senior Bowl. 285 pounds, and he's an S-tier athlete. He's a guy that's going to absolutely light it up at the combine. Doesn't have a lot of production, but Baltimore's a team that will gamble on traits and upside over production as much as any other team in the NFL, and I think that this could potentially be a rich-get-richer situation where everyone just rolls their eyes in 2 years' time when Shamar Stewart is a double-digit sack getter, and like, oh yeah, of course Baltimore got this guy at the last, 5 picks of the draft, because that's just what they freaking do. We have the Detroit Lions at pick number 28. This is a very popular pick for Detroit Lions. I'm going to make you happy with this one. I'm going to get Jack Sawyer, the edge rusher from Ohio State. Absolutely improved his draft stock, I think. I think he was probably a second-round pick. But with the run that Ohio State went on, 6'5", 260 pounds, 9 TFLs, 9 sacks, almost 40 hurries on the year. Actually had Detroit going with him in my last mock draft. Got great reception, great feedback. A lot of people will be happy about that. They get someone on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson that can get after the quarterback as a top need for the Detroit Lions. Commanders on the clock at pick 29. I'm going to have them select Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver out of Ohio State. I think continuing to get weapons for Jaden Daniels, be it free agency or in this scenario in the draft, is you can't go wrong with that. And Egbuka, 6'1", 205, had 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns, has been one of the most consistent wide receivers in college football for the last 3 seasons. A very safe gig. I mean, Scary Terry's not getting any younger, so you can put Egbuka out there with Terry, obviously, next year, and long-term could be his successor. We have Buffalo on the clock at pick 30, and we're going to stay at wide receiver, and we're going to select Matthew Golden, wide receiver from Texas. Ridiculous highlight reel last year for Texas. Kind of came out of nowhere a little bit. But at 6 feet tall, 195 pounds, went over 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns. Get more weapons for Buffalo. I feel like that's kind of what you like. The Bills, when you look at the roster, you're just throwing what sticks. Who and what can be the missing piece that finally has us trump the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think getting another playmaker for Josh Allen is likely the direction you need to go. And with Golden, and hopefully another year of development out of Keon Coleman, you got those tight ends, and James Cook's been a beast. Like, maybe that will finally be the winning combination for them to get a Super Bowl. We have Kansas City at pick 31. We're going to have them just against Josh Simmons, a guy that's projected to go much higher, but had a really, really rough injury at Ohio State. You watch the Super Bowl, clearly a situation where that's now the top dog. You now have to figure out ways to beat the Philadelphia Eagles if you're the Kansas City Chiefs. And their offensive line simply was not good enough. So you go Josh Simmons, a guy that if he was healthy and a clean bill of health, probably going closer to top 10 than he is late first round. But this is going to be a gamble for the Kansas City Chiefs. Maybe, I assume that the word on the street is that Simmons will be healthy and ready to go for training camp. I think it was like October when he suffered his injury. But before he got hurt, he was looking like the best tackle in college football. So that could end up being an absolute home run for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, finishing up at pick 32, my beloved Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, we're going to have fun with this. Oh, what is this? Philadelphia no longer has the first round pick. What are they doing? We're going to send it. We're going to, okay, give me the goddamn trade. Give me the goddamn trade. Too much, not enough. Oh my God, just give me the trade. Okay, it's not letting me make it. The trade, Philadelphia, we're getting Myles Garrett in this scenario. I think we're going to be seeing Zach Bond, Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, most of those guys, Mekhi Becton, all these dudes are going to be out the window. And what perfect way for the Philadelphia Eagles to kind of just shove it in everyone's face after winning a Super Bowl. I think they're going to be one of the teams that's going to be super aggressive for Myles Garrett. Maybe I think ultimate thing is, like, can the Browns even trade Myles Garrett? Who knows? But in this scenario, even though this site won't let me make the goddamn trade, come on. We'll give you a pick, whatever. Is it because it's okay, boom. You go. That won't even let me. Okay, we'll go boom. We'll go Cleveland. 1 for 1. Boom. Can I make this trade? Why won't you let me? Not enough. I have, like, unlimited trades on. And they won't even let me make it. So it's fucking glitched. Doesn't matter. This would be a Cleveland Browns selection. Philly gets Myles Garrett. Cleveland goes out. They get Josh Carley at tackle. Legitimate first rounder. And, if you're the Browns, you leave this. No more Myles Garrett, but you still get a tackle, which is a dire position. They need that O-line that used to be so great. Not so great anymore. And then for the Browns, you also end up getting Abdul Carter as your successor replacement, however you want to break it down, for Myles Garrett. Had a little bit of fun there. Of course, had to let my Eagles get Myles Garrett. That's your first round pick, Philly, waiting all the way here. But that's going to be an interesting thing, man. Where is Myles Garrett? If he gets traded, I really do agree. Like Philly, Washington, Buffalo, it's going to be one of those teams. But I would just love for my Eagles to just be like, just the big middle finger to the league. It's like, oh, you thought, we're going to be losing guys, losing the stars of the defense in the Super Bowl. We'll just go get Myles Garrett. No worries about it. So there you go, fellas. That is my post-Super Bowl mock draft with trades. Had a little bit of fun with this one. Would love to hear what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you like the trades? Do you not like the trades? Do you think they were stupid trades? Do you think they were happy trades? Do you think that the Steelers would actually be aggressive? I really do think. I think they would be one of the teams. Especially just where Mike Tomlin backed into the corner for the first time in his career, it feels like, with Pittsburgh. Throw a Hail Mary, man. Just throw a Hail Mary. But that'll do for me today, guys. We'll be back tomorrow, hopefully, with a Miami Dolphins realistic rebuild. You're not going to want to miss that. As always, your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button, as we have mock draft content, regular draft content, and rankings content on the horizon. Leave a comment in the comment section below how you feel about your team's mock draft pick. And until next time, with your boy C4 saying peace out, love ya. Have a good one. Go Birds.